G'day everyone, welcome to this latest edition of the F1 Armchair Experts podcast for the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix. I'm Durko, your host, and as usual I'm joined by Big T in Ireland. Welcome Tony.
Hello.
So, it's time to get the show on the road, as they say, and so pull up a pew, sit back, relax and enjoy the show.
Let's do it.
So the first thing I want to discuss, Tony, is obviously the Imola circuit. F1 went without it, for a fair while. Not racing Imola. It came back obviously because of the restrictions of COVID. They couldn't travel around the world. Europe was obviously the priority. A lot of people were critical of Imola coming back because they said it was too tight. Wasn't a circuit that suited the modern F1 cars because they were too big. I tend to disagree with it. I think it's a great classic racing circuit. I think it's got to remain on the calendar for as long as it can. I don't want to see it disappear. My feelings on street circuits, I just think they're an absolute gimmick and they just take away from what the principle of Formula One is about. So I'd rather see circuits like Imola stay. Sure, there's bugger all runoff. Effectively, they're going around a circuit that's about the width of two cars anyway. Then there's a fine line, about the width of a credit card. Then you're off in the grass or the gravel, into the kiddie litter. But that's what I think makes it a great challenge about circuits like Imola. That it's a real risk to the driver of you make a mistake, as we just saw, 90 minutes or so ago with Sainz. He's out of coming together with Ricciardo, and bang, you're off, into the second or third turn. That's it, race over in front of your home crowd. I just think we're going to stop going to these bloody stupid street circuits and just stick with classic, proper racing circuits.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I totally agree. I don't have any particular preference when it comes to circuits. I like racing, full stop. So I like cars. I want to see them battling. We had this conversation yesterday. Just for anybody that's listening, we are literally, I think the podium is currently on at the moment while we're doing this podcast. So literally we decided to jump on straight away. So a lot of it is still kind of fresh in my head. But one thing I was thinking about during the race was how much I dislike this circuit. And we had a conversation yesterday over WhatsApp about DRS. And you saw during the start of this race in Imola that there was no DRS for a good, I don't know, was it 20 or 30 laps, something like that?
Nearly 30.
Yeah, nearly 30 laps. And it was a parade. And that's kind of what I was saying yesterday, that without DRS, this would just be another parade circuit. It's no different than Monaco. It all comes down then to qualifying on the Saturday. Now, luckily, we had the sprint race, which gave us some kind of entertainment in terms of, qualifying Friday, sprint race on the Saturday. So we got a bit of entertainment. We got, today was... When it comes to the circuit, I'm not a fan. It's too unforgiving. It's like we saw there with Sainz and Ricciardo. As a McLaren fan, I didn't want to see Ricciardo McLaren fall to the back, but it's kind of bittersweet, Norris is on the podium and Ricciardo finished... where did Ricciardo finish? He finished...
he was in 18th.
Yeah, 18th. Yeah, so he was last. But that's what this circuit did. It's so tight and narrow that the consequence of making a mistake is too high. And yeah, okay, you can argue on one side of the fence that it's a challenge for the drivers and they have to be, you know, more on it. You see it there with Russell and Bottas there at the end.
Yep.
Even with DRS, Bottas couldn't pass the Mercedes. So yeah, I'm not a fan. I wouldn't say I'm not a fan. I'm kind of neutral. I'm going to say that I'm neutral on it. I don't mind street circuits, and I don't mind Imola, but I don't think there's a reason to change anything. But you can see where these cars have developed faster and faster, and without DRS, we would have not had an entertaining sprint race, and we would have definitely not had as many overtakes today, because you saw the moment they enabled DRS at lap 30, then it was, there was some good battles. One thing I do want to stress though, before I forget to say this, and I don't know if people would agree with me, and if you do, put it in the comments below in the Facebook group. If not, if you disagree, then stay quiet. But every time I looked at the TV screen today, in comparison to last year, there was 4 or 5 cars on the track. Like, every time I looked at the screen, there was like a bunch of cars. They were all in close proximity all the way through to the end of the race, and I loved that. What did you think?
Look, I think it was good, but one thing I do pick up on is this, as you said, there's no room for error in this circuit. Obviously, it took 30-odd laps for the DRS to be enabled, but that was because it was a wet start. It's pissed down rain all weekend. So the race director, obviously, he's either been asleep at the helm or he's just aired on the sign of caution, not enabling the DRS for the 30-odd laps to take place. But the thing is, with these new aero regs for this year, it really has bunched the cars up, and that's what I think's a great thing. Now, over time, I've been pretty critical of DRS. Say, look, should we have it at every race? Should we have it at limited races, like potentially like sprint races, only a couple of times a year? Should DRS be targeted specific, to use the word, for certain races? But I've got to say, it was just an absolute bloody snooze fest watching that first 30 laps without the DRS being enabled, because everyone was in the race thread in the group just saying, okay, turn it on now, turn it on, okay, let's go, DRS, we're right to go with DRS. And I've got to agree with them, it was just as boring as shit watching it with everyone chasing each other. Why do
you think they held off for so long with the DRS? What's your opinion there? Do you think that's just a safety thing because the track was still a bit too wet, or are they being overcautious, the race stewards?
Well, I reckon they're being overcautious. They're probably erring on the side of safety, only because if they did enable the DRS and you go off the dry line, you're into the wet, because they were all on slicks by this stage by the time we're calling for the DRS to be turned on. So that if that's the case, they're on the wet track on medium compound tyres, the C3, and then it's going to get speared off into the wall. So, then it comes back to the budget cap. You can go on and on. The budget cap, can the teams really afford for their cars to get damaged as we head into the European rounds now? We've done the first 3 flyaway races. We're back to Europe, and this is where they say, the real season begins now that they're back in the home soil. But, I think it's an argument we're probably going to keep DRS, because all of a sudden when it's not there, everyone's calling for it.
Just going back to the race and a quick comment, I know we've got a bit of an agenda here, but I think there's a bit more to talk about during the race. How unlucky has Sainz been? Because I think this is his third race now that he's kind of he's either crashed out or he's not been anywhere in the race. He seems seriously unlucky in that Ferrari. Whatever's happened, he was never like this in the McLaren. He was, I don't know, what is it? Do you think the pressure's getting to him, or what the hell is going on?
It's a tough call, Tony. Look, I think it's his second DNF. He went out of Melbourne. He's now gone out of Imola, effectively the Ferrari's home race, because Maranello's just up the road. Whether or not he's whatever's going wrong for him, I think he's just got to refocus himself, especially going to a new race in a couple of weeks' time in Miami. It's going to be an unknown for all of them. So maybe going to an unknown circuit may help him. I don't know. Because Leclerc's going to have no advantage over him there other than being the probably senior driver in the team's the only advantage he's got. But I think with Sainz, well, he's just had a contract extension for another couple of years with the Scuderia. But, I mean, he was always a reliable driver when he was at Renault, when he was at McLaren, when he was at Toro Rosso. Wherever he's gone, he's always delivered and brought the car home in one piece. But it's just this season, he's fallen out of the tree and broken every branch on the way down. It's just luck's just not on his side. He just, I don't know. How does a bloke refocus from this? I mean, I'm saying, what does Dan Rick do to refocus? He's come 18th, for this race, and we thought there was some redemption after Melbourne, but
who was at fault?
That's my bias. Oh, racing incident, 100%. 100% racing incident.
because it's Ricciardo, it's a racing incident, yeah.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying, based on what it is, they're all jostling. They're coming to turn 2, turn 3, wet track. There's bugger all real estate there to move anyway. I reckon it's a racing incident.
You could definitely see that the curbs are very wet, and as Ricciardo was going into the corner, and he's kind of fighting the steering, and he's trying to correct it, and he feels the back end start to slide, and he kind of, he turns, then it bites. At the moment that he came off the curb and the front wheels hit the tarmac, it bites, pushes him into Sainz, clips Sainz spins, and Sainz just got unlucky, out on the gravel. And that's where I don't like the track. I don't like... there's an argument for and against, and we've had it over the last couple of years in the Facebook group where people have been saying, get rid of these big runoff areas and bring back the gravel traps, and but that was when Mercedes were dominating. That was when it was a different kind of racing. Now that the cars are all packed together, I don't want to see any cars going off and getting stuck in the gravel. I don't want to see Sainz. Sainz could have. I would have much preferred for Sainz, if he had spun, okay, it happened, racing incident, let's agree on that, okay. Sainz had spun, he was able to correct himself, get back onto the track, maybe pit under the safety car, put on the medium tyre or the soft tyre early on, and go for it. And I would have much preferred to see him working his way up through the pack, over the course of the race. Instead, within one corner, he's out of the race. And that's why, going back to the conversation about the track, I'm not... I'm not a fan of these gravel traps, to be honest. But look, that's just me. I'd rather see all cars on track and all cars finishing, and at least have the opportunity to kind of, if they do make a mistake and they do go off track and they do spin, or they make a mess up at the chicane or whatever it is, I want to see how talented they are to see what position they finish in. I mean, like Ricciardo. I suppose that happened with Ricciardo. Ricciardo went off at the same time with Sainz. He fell to the back of the pack, and then he ended up finishing 18th, and he was nowhere. I don't understand, considering Norris made it, albeit he was gifted third place, let's be honest. I mean, it was nice to see McLaren on the podium, and, we would have been happy with a fourth place, but, what's going on between the front and the back of the pack? It's the same with Mercedes. I mean, I think we should probably move on to Mercedes and this comment by Gerald Hughes that you want to touch on there in a second. But did you notice the difference in the two Mercs? Like Russell up in P5, P6, or where did he finish? Russell finished in P4. Sorry. And then Hamilton finished all the way back in 14th and was struggling even to pass Gasly for that last stint. Like, what's going on? What's going on at Mercedes?
Yeah, it's you got to ask the question, what is going on, Merck? And it comes back to a comment that was made in the group by Gerald Hughes. Have they over-engineered their car? And I've got to say that's the comment of the week for me, because I think Mercedes have over-engineered the car with these new regs that they've been required to stick to. I mean, you got to look at Hamilton. He's ended in 14th, started in 14th. His main competitor last season, who got the championship, Verstappen, lapped him. Hamilton's there racing with Yuki Tsunoda and Mick Schumacher and so forth in a Haas. I mean, if you said to me at the beginning of the season, Durko, here's the script for the 4th round at Imola. We need you to read this. I would have said, you are joking. There's no way this is ever going to happen. But, that's what the hymn book says. For this round, it says Hamilton's racing with an Alpha Tauri and a Haas, and you just think, no way this could ever happen. But I think they have over-engineered the car because they've come out with this magical side pod, zero side pod, to really try and play with, redesigning or redefining the rules as to how far they can stretch them. And I think they've potentially got to, Honda tried to do it years ago with a size 0 engine in the back of the McLaren, and that was just a colossal stuff up. Because the only thing that engine was good for was a boat anchor. So they had to start again. And I think Merck have got to start again and really say, where are we going wrong here? Because Hamilton's, you saw it, over the course of the weekend in Q2, there was still 2 minutes to go. Hamilton's parked his car in the garage, got out of the car, just walked straight out of the back. Didn't even talk to Bono or Toto or anyone. He just had the shit. He just beelined straight to the back of the garage. So something's really got to be done with that team, and I don't know what the answer is, but then you look at George Russell. He's beaten Hamilton this whole season. Clearly, he's found a sweet spot with that car that suits him, or I don't know. Dare I say it and be bold and go all out and say, have Mercedes designed this car around George as their future driver to remain with the team for a few seasons? Do they now start to look at Lewis as being old hat?
No, I don't see that at all. I think they've definitely not built. If they were going to build a car around anybody, they'd build it around a 7-time world champion, not the rookie. That doesn't make any kind of good business sense or sporting sense. If I can get a bit technical there for a second, there's a lot of talk around the internet on the technical forums that the side pod is not just the only problem, or not the only cause of the problem that they're having. So if you look at, I don't know if you noticed how much that car was porpoising during the race. It was crazy.
Just
it was
unreal.
Absolutely more than any other car. And I started to zoom in and focus in on watching the Mercedes and how close it was to the floor. And one thing I noticed is that rear suspension of Hamilton's versus Russell's. Russell seemed to have a much more stable car for some reason. He was able to fend off Bottas near the end of the race. But during the kind of the middle stint, where there was a bit of middle end stint where we were kind of watching Hamilton just after the pit stops, we're watching Hamilton kind of find his position in the race, and I was looking at the floor at the rear, and no sooner does he get the power down, the rear part of the floor just in front of the back wheel, just in front of the rear wheel, is practically touching the tarmac. So the chatter is that it's a combination of the side pod. If you notice what Ferrari have done, Ferrari have kept their side pods out, which actually gives the floor stability. So there isn't any flex in the floor. What Mercedes have done is they've gone narrow with their side pods, which basically they've created these kind of, I don't know if you can see on the camera there, their floor will do this, whereas the Ferrari is more stable. It can't bend because the side pod is sitting and actually holding the floor into position, right? Yeah. So this flex in the floor, the moment he gets the power down, okay, and the side pod problem and a combination of soft rear suspension, okay, the whole thing is just like, it's basically vacuuming down to the floor, and then as he picks up the speed and he gets to the end of the straights, this thing is like detaching and attaching. It's absolutely crazy. I think George Russell may have ran, by the looks of it, I don't know this for certain, this is only a pure assumption, but I think Russell ran a stiffer rear suspension than Hamilton. That allowed him to make his gains during the race and hold his position. And he also did that in Melbourne as well, where he was able to Was he fifth in Melbourne? Was it Melbourne he was fifth, or was it Saudi
I think
Arabia?
he was fifth, yeah.
Yeah. I think he was like kind of fifth in Melbourne. He was he must like a stiffer rear setup, and it's actually helping with the drivability of the car. I could be wrong. I don't know if people would agree or disagree, but that's what's kind of the chatter is in the technical forums, is that if Mercedes need to widen out their side pods, stabilize the floor, and run a stiffer rear suspension. Have they over-engineered it? Definitely. There's this word that jumps to my head, smart arses. Like, they tell you, 8-time world champion, or, constructors champions, they were able just to take the new regulations and they thought they had it sussed. And I know Ashley, I refer to Ashley a lot, but I'd be chatting to Ashley during the race and yourself during the race. And Ashley absolutely loves to see Mercedes struggling. Absolutely loves to see them struggling. And I put the question to him during the race. 1 second, I'll pull it up on my phone here. I asked him, I said, Russell in fourth is a bit worrying. Do you think there is potential in that Mercedes? And he said he's not too sure. He's driven a great race. The fact that Bottas is all over him now shows where they're at. So, yeah, I don't know whether they've over-engineered the car. It's hard to... Clearly they have. They need to come to Miami with huge, like, basically the car that they had in Barcelona testing. Otherwise, they're at nothing. They're going to be at nothing for the rest of the season.
Because it's interesting that Mercedes, they broke one of their... I'm just holding up a big pen here. Is one of Prost's former sponsors is in BIC, the French company. They broke one of those stay rods, which is about the thickness of this pen, that holds the floor, or is meant to hold the floor a bit stiffer, but they still broke one. So I don't know what they're going to do, but clearly I think if they have an upgrade for the Mercedes car during the season, they have to add some proper side pods to it, I'd say.
What are we moving on to next? Because Mercedes kind of bores the shit out of me, to be honest. Let's talk about a different... fuck no. Let's go back talking about Mercedes. Yeah, gladly.
Okay, no. Just one quick thing I want to talk about. It's obviously it was amateur hour at Williams for the qualifying. Qualifying, I think it was. Albon's gone out, and obviously the car was set up for the wet setup, and they forgot to change the brake bias of Albon's car, so he's just absolutely cooked the rear brakes because he had the dry tyres on it, and the thing literally just blew up. Like the whole rear brake assembly just shattered and just absolutely munched itself. I thought Williams was starting to, under Jos Capito's leadership, they were really starting to turn a corner a bit, but clearly one of the mechanics was asleep at the wheel a bit in terms of forgetting to change the brake bias. I don't know what happened there.
I didn't watch. I only watched the highlights of. I was working Friday when qualifying was on. I think it was on around 4:00, so I was actually just tying up at work. But I mean, if it was just something as simple as a mechanic not changing the bias, or whether it was a combination of the driver and the mechanic, human error, mistakes happen. You don't expect to see it in a Formula One team, but in a Formula One team that's rebuilding itself, possibly a lot of new staff. Maybe they've had a bit of a restructure and a rejig. I would imagine Jos Capito has definitely moved people around, and you can see. But in the same breath, I mean, last race in Melbourne, Albon was managed to do nearly the whole race on the medium tire. I think they pretty much all did it today in Imola as well, didn't they? They were all, I think at one point during the race I was kind of saying to myself, yeah, they're all going to do an Albon. I was hoping that Albon would do the same again. I think he was running kind of 11th or 12th. And I was thinking to myself early on in the race, okay, if you can go to the end of the race on these medium tyres, this will be just brilliant again, because everybody else will have to pit. Possibly the chance of rain coming in the last few laps, which didn't materialise in the end. But yeah, I don't know what's going on at Williams. I think they need a bit of time. It isn't that they've under-engineered the car. The car is clearly all right. You know, it's midfield. It's definitely midfield quality. With the exception of Latifi, except when Latifi gets behind the wheel and bins it in the wall. But yeah, it's an okay car. They're an okay team, and I think, you know, given what they're dealing with and, you know, where they've come from, they're still rebuilding, they're still restructuring, they're still, you know, trying to get on and do things right. And look, you know, an odd little mistake here and there is kind of. I'm sure there'll be more.
I've got to agree with you completely there. I think Latifi's time is done. I think if they keep him beyond this season, you know, sure, you know, he's bringing his dad's money to the team, but look, he's just not delivering. He's had his chance. He hasn't really just had that magic moment of saying, look, wow, this is why I'm here. He's just struggled to deliver, you know, struggled to keep the car going around the circuit, so to speak. One thing I want to talk about is, obviously, there's been changes to the sprint race format for this weekend as it returns for the first time. Now, I think there's only 3 sprint races this season, being Imola, Austria and Brazil. But the thing they've changed, which I think is a completely stupid and ridiculous idea, is handing out 8 points, or 8 points for the first 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, down to 8th place. So it's first to 8th gets reverse of that in terms of points.
Why is it a stupid idea?
So first, second and third used to get points. So I just think it's just another cash grab for points. And if you're going to have a sprint race, make the drivers sprint for the front to get a handful of points. But don't just hand everyone out. It's like turning up a kid's birthday party. Everyone gets a takeaway bag to, you know, go home. Here's your complimentary points because you turned up. You know, it's not a complimentary, you know, gift of. You know, I just think it's stupid. If you're going to hand out points for 1 to 10, do it in the main race. Don't do it in the sprint race. It's just some sort of a bloody novelty. I think you've just got to keep it to the top 3 and make it 3, 2, 1. 3 points for first, second, and one point for coming third. You know, I just for me, I mean, it was great to see K-Man get a point in the Haas, but I just can't see the point. It's almost like having 2 Grand Prix on the weekend. The sprint race wasn't meant to be like that.
I don't mind it. As in terms of points, might mix things up towards the end of the season. But yeah, I agree. I think it should be just for qualifying positions. And then what I don't know why I think this, and I don't know when it came into my head, but for a while now I've been saying, why don't they hand out points all the way to 20th position? Why don't they? Why is it just the top 10? You know, could they reformat it in some kind of way? I don't know why. Like I said, I don't know why. I'm probably sidetracking into my own thoughts here now, but I've often thought, like, you know, why don't they have points all the way down to 20th position, like, and just get rid of this thing for the top 10, and then get rid of the points for the sprint race, and just have that for qualifying positions. Just keep it simple, you know. Just don't. The more they faff around with it and make it overcomplicated, and, you know, come up with all these gimmicks, and, you know, I don't know whatever's going to come next. I mean, just leave it the way it is for the moment. But I'm enjoying this season. I wouldn't change anything at the moment. I think we should leave DRS, leave the sprint races in. I think we should have a few more sprint races because, the sprint race yesterday on Saturday for Imola was pretty intense. Right down to the last lap. Albeit we had a safety car. It was entertaining. I think we should. The points thing don't really bother me, but yeah, look, if people agree that they should go, then the problem there is though people are going to kind of say, well, what's the point? Excuse the pun, but like, is it worth the money, the effort? There's got to be some kind of reward. There's got to be some kind of reward other than a position for going flat out over 20 laps. Maybe that's something to do with it, I don't know.
Yeah, could be.
Not an issue for me.
Look, I wasn't a fan last year of the sprint race, but I enjoyed watching it here at Imola, only because I like the circuit. So that's where I'll leave that. Just recapping the race, any great highlights or outstanding things for you? I mean, we've touched on it at the beginning of the show. But for me, I still laugh at the fact Hamilton was lapped and was racing with a Haas and an AlphaTauri. I still just can't believe it. But I think overall it was a great result. I think Leclerc was lucky to get away with that brushing of the wall, only to replace the nose. I thought when I saw him go off, I thought, nah, he's absolutely going to destroy the car here. But he was lucky he only snapped a bit off the front wing and new nose and he was away. So I think he was lucky. But overall, I think it wasn't a bad race. It certainly livened things up when the DRS was switched on and they were allowed to use it again.
It was, I suppose, as much as I am a massive Alonso fan, it was sad to see him going out at the start of the race with his bodywork, deciding to just vacate the premises. I think he got tipped by Michael Schumacher and around that kind of first lap, that first corner incident. I think he paid the price for it. Then had to retire the car. So having Sainz and Alonso missing for most of the race, I think things would have been a bit different. I think it obviously puts people out of position. During the race, I also felt that Aston Martin had done a great job. They had not really been gifted any positions. It was just by sheer hard work, good racing. I like the fact that Stroll was keeping it clean as well. He was a little bit more. I think he was going toe to toe with Tsunoda at one point, and it was getting a bit edgy, and I was kind of saying to myself, there's going to be a crash here. If it's Stroll and they're racing this close to each other, there's going to be a crash. He kept it clean. Vettel managed to finish in 8th, Stroll managed to finish in 10th, so they both picked up points. So for the Aston Martin fans, a little bit of redemption there now. I don't know, will you still be asking if Vettel will be leaving before the end of the season if he continues at this pace, P8, P7, if that's where they were. Ocon was 11th, so Alonso probably would have been around the 9th. He would have been in the mix there between the AlphaTauris and the Aston Martins. Magnussen had a great race, fairly solid all the way through, managed to finish P9. Ahead of Hamilton, ahead of an AlphaTauri, ahead of a Williams, ahead of Ricciardo. Magnussen must be, I don't know, Haas must be on a massive high right now, all these results. Again, points finish for Magnussen. Brilliant job by him. And I think these new rules and these new regulations have definitely made it a lot easier for Haas. They've got more wind tunnel time. They've got a little bit more in terms of what they can do and how they can develop the car, and it's paying off for them. I'm still kind of upset to see. I wouldn't say upset. I wouldn't be that physically kind of attached to him. But Mick Schumacher. I'm expecting better. I'm every race. I'm like, come on, Mick, This is the one now. Do it. Show everybody what you can do. If Kevin can do it, you can do it. And then something happens. He gets into a bit of a tangle. I think he went off track. I think the spin that he had during the race at Imola today, he just went in too deep, brake too hard, ended up cutting across the chicane, and then as he come back on the track, I think he oversteered to avoid a collision and just ended up spinning out. So again, rookie kind of rookie errors. He's probably going to need another year, but I'm hoping that Magnussen is passing off some kind of wisdom onto him, a bit of experience over to him, and helping him set up the car and that kind of thing. I want to talk about Ricciardo, if you've got a minute. I've mentioned this before in a previous podcast. Like, I am so disappointed in Ricciardo. I know he's an Aussie, and I know all the Aussies listening to the podcast, and yourself included, are like, "Oh, don't diss the Aussie. Fuck, don't. Jesus, mate, don't be so fucking hard on the Aussie, mate." But fucking hell,
we've got to be.
I mean, what is going on with Ricciardo? Like, I mean, fuck, he was never like this at Red Bull. Like, when he was in a Red Bull, and even when he was in the Renault, he was all right. He was racy. He was able to put laps together. He was able to get, point scoring during the race. I mean, like, he had one win in Monza last year. Like, but what the fuck has happened to him? Just clumsy constantly.
I think when he left Red Bull, he left his racing nest in the motorhome, and I don't know. He's just lost it ever since he left Red Bull. I don't think he had it at Renault.
No.
I hate to say it. I'm a fan of him because he's McLaren, and B, because as an Aussie, but I'm starting to give up on the guy. I can't.
Yeah.
You just flogging a dead horse, trying to support him at the moment. But I think it was good at least tonight for Norris to bring the McLaren home in P3, so that was a great result to them to get a podium, because they've had some struggles. But Ricciardo, I know I've got a lot of family and friends who say, "Durko, what are you doing? You're giving up on him." But I'm just at the point I can't keep going on.
And Norris is doing such a great job. Like, I mean, it's hard to take away from Norris. Even like last year in Sochi, the wet race, he was. We knew early on that he was going to be. He's up there with Verstappen and Leclerc and Russell and the kind of the gamer crowd, as we call them.
Yep.
The new younger generation. McLaren are going to have to make a decision fairly soon now, and they're going to have to start listening more to Norris. They're going to have to start building the car around Norris, and unfortunately, Ricciardo's just going to become the support driver, and he's just going to be kind of fighting for whatever he can get, and it's really disappointing. It really is disappointing. Who would I put in? I think if Ricciardo doesn't improve by mid-season, then I'll give him till Silverstone, to be honest. And if I don't really see any results by Silverstone, as a McLaren fan, I'm going to be looking for him to be replaced. I can't support him. I can't support. I'll support the team, but I'm really not happy with Ricciardo. The question is, though, hypothetically, if Ricciardo was to move on and you were to put somebody else in that seat, who would you put in that seat? Who would be a better replacement right now? In this current generation of drivers, who would you put in that car next to Norris in place of Ricciardo? Go.
Oscar Piastri.
Definitely.
Just going back to what you were saying before about Mick Schumacher, I think he probably lost his bottle this weekend because he was interviewed for Sky Sports Germany by his uncle Ralph, so I think that probably threw him off.
Oh, right, okay.
Having to talk that excitement, a barrel of fun that is Ralph Schumacher, I think, yep. I'd rather go watch paint dry than talk to Ralph. But anyway, just closing up for the show.
Yeah, let's do it.
We're going to Miami next. Your thoughts quickly on Miami?
I can't wait. I genuinely can't wait. It's gonna be a night race, isn't it? It's a night race. It's under the lights. It's happening on Saturday night as opposed to Sunday, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong there. I haven't read up too much on it. It looks like a great track, in comparison to the old car park. Miami track we had years back. This looks like it's going to be good. There's going to be a lot of money there in Miami. There's going to be a lot of cool backdrops. It's going to be like something that we have never, ever seen before. It's going to be a Singapore, Singapore-esque type. If Singapore and Baku had a baby, I think this is what Miami's going to be like. It's got some good. I think it's got a good long straight, which is going to be good for overtaking. A couple of DRS zones. Yeah, I'm excited. I really, really am excited because I always love going to new tracks. I always like to see how they pan out. I don't want to be writing it off too early either. I'm willing to give it a chance. I'm willing to give it some real. I'm willing to give Formula One the benefit of the doubt. They've been at this for a long time, since almost since like they took over. I think back in whenever it was 5 or 6 years ago. They've been pushing for Miami, and then it fell through, and then it was back on the table. Then it fell through a second time, and now we're here. It's a done deal. So it could be. We could be looking at we could be looking at the Monaco replacement. This could be the Monaco replacement. When we talk about glitz and glamour and glory and money and it's you think of Monaco. You don't think of any other race. You think of Monaco. But I think Miami's going to very quickly replace it. What do you think?
As you know, I'm never a fan of straight circuits, but I'm actually I agree with you on this. I'm quietly looking forward to Miami to see what this circuit's going to deliver. I've seen a, computer-generated pretend lap. I've seen the layout of the circuit. I think it's going to be interesting. I've been to Miami. It's a dead flat area. So I'll be interested to see what this circuit does. It's a unique layout. There's some fast sections, some tight stuff into the fast again, and it's a pretty lengthy circuit. And I'm just going to look. I'm just not going to really pass too much comment on it. I'm just going to wait and see how it turns out. It could be a potential replacement for Monaco. I mean, I love Monaco. I've been there. I think it's an amazing circuit. People hate it, but I think it's just steep with history, and I think it's a really challenging circuit, Monaco. But the one thing about Miami is, the cost of the tickets. They're just a stupid price.
How much?
Oh, you look at $1,200 US for a seat.
Ouch.
It's just insane what people are paying to get a seat at the Miami circuit. But they've sold it out, so good luck to them, and we'll just have to see what sort of a circus they can turn on for us. So yeah, give it a couple of weeks, and we'll be doing this all again for the Miami Grand Prix for once, which will be a change.
We might actually do a podcast in between. I don't know if you're up for it next weekend. I actually don't know what I have on next weekend. I could be away for the weekend. We'll see. But at some point, I think I had this idea, and throw this out to the floor and see what people think. A kind of it's an Ask Me Anything. It's an AMA, which I thought would be good to do for yourself. So we might look at doing, if that's something that interests people, let us know in the comments or send us a message. But it's along the lines of people will send questions to me for me to ask you. You won't know what the questions are, and then we'll do a live podcast, and I'll put those questions to you. They could be related to anything Formula One related. Mm-hmm. It could be personal stuff. I don't know. It just your opinion on politics, or what's going on in Ukraine, or I've no idea. I couldn't. And Ask Me Anything pretty much opens up it's a broad category of subjects that people can ask. So, I had that idea the other day, and I thought that'd be a good laugh, to do.
You could get any number of answers. You don't know what I'm going to come out with.
All right, okay, so I think we're going to wrap it up there. So Imola 2022 was a good race. We got some good results if you're a Mercedes fan, or if you're a McLaren fan or a Red Bull fan. Then I think it's hard to dislike the result. I think Red Bull are going to pull forward now. They seem to be on top of their fuel problems. Ferrari seem to be looking like they're under pressure a little bit. The pressure's getting to them, and they're making some mistakes. Leclerc spin, Sainz went out in the first lap. So yeah, Miami is going to be a good one. So yeah, final thoughts on the current state of F1?
Unreal. Yep, best season I've watched in decades, I'd say. Yep, years.
I agree.
The rule changes have made a massive difference, and F1's come back to life again.
You're happy for DRS to stay then, yeah?
Yes, I've changed my opinion. Now that I've seen half a race without it and half a race with it, I changed my early guilty plea and withdraw that comment, Your Honour.
So that wraps it up for another episode of the Formula One Armchair Experts podcast. It's a goodbye from me, and we'll talk to you hopefully in a week, and we'll have another podcast for you. Say goodbye to everybody,
Okay.
Durko.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye. See you, Tone.